Good evening, everyone. This is our regular agenda of the City Council budget Southfield budget adoption meeting being held at 5:30 on June 14th via WebEx. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Banks.
Present.
Brightwell.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Mandelbaum.
Present.
Frazier.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
And Cruz.
Present.
Madam President, you do have a quorum. We are getting some early feedback, so if you can advise the participants to mute.
Yes. Everyone, would you please mute your line when you are not speaking to cut back on some of the feedback that we're getting? Thank you very much. Our first item is a public hearing for our 2021 and 2022 budget for the city of Southfield. Do we want to talk about it before we open the public hearing? Were there any comments or anything that needed to be made?
Madam President, this is Austin Michaels, Director of Fiscal Service. I do have a presentation that I would like to go through, and then we can open it up to public comment if that is appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Council. I am here to review the proposed budget for the fiscal 22 year. Next slide, please. First, we start off with the City of Southfield organizational chart. The residents are on the top or on the left as depicted here, followed by our elected officials, the court, and then the city administrator, city planner, city attorney, and all of the other departments. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to talk a little about where we were versus where we're going. So back this time last year, we had a lot of uncertainty surrounding the pandemic and how that was going to impact the city and our operations. Acting in a conservative manner, we reduced our projected revenues. We reduced general fund revenues by $2.5 million. The Parks and Rec Department reduced their revenues and expenditures by about $1 million. The library postponed $700,000 in expenditures. Our street fund revenues were reduced by $460,000. And our capital projects of $5.7 million were removed across funds to be assessed on a as-needed basis. Next slide. Going forward, as we move back to our more typical operations, good news, general fund revenues are anticipated to increase by just under 4%. Parks and Rec, the revenues there are expected to increase by $550,000 as they bring some programs back. The library is planning some significant capital improvements. We'll look at those in a little more detail later. Street funds are expected to increase revenue by about $250,000. And then capital projects have been reassessed and then included as appropriate. Next slide, please. I met with Council on May 20th to do our annual budget review, and there have been a couple of changes since then. So the day after we met, the State of Michigan's Revenue Consensus Estimating Conference released their updated estimates for state shared revenue. Good news for us, an additional $325,000. As we were putting that into the budget and doing, yet again another review, there were certain personnel costs totaling about $24,000 that we reallocated from our support services fund to their appropriate departments. Next slide, please. So looking at the revenue snapshot, property taxes remain our largest source of revenues within the general fund at 66%. And overall, our taxable value increased just under 1.4% from the current year. The millage rate levied on property increased by 0.3349 mils, and that's primarily attributed to the police and fire pension. We'll look at that as well. State shared revenues, as I've just mentioned, have increased. It's about 12.6%, and they make up just under 10% of our general fund revenue. The total revenues proposed for the general fund are $82.2 million, which represents a total 4.8% increase over the current year. And then looking across all funds, total revenues are proposed at $196 million, which is an increase of about 5.4% over the current year. Next slide. So this is a pictorial of the revenues across all funds. Taxes make up 36%. Water and sewer comprise about 26%, followed closely by our fees, permits, fines, and other charges. And then intergovernmental revenues, which include federal, state, and other local funds, comprise 12%. Next slide, please. We'll look at the expenditures. So the largest portion of general fund expenditures continues to be public safety. It's police and fire comprise 59% of those expenditures. Our general government expenditures, which include our primary support departments, comprise about 17%. And then total general fund expenditures are in line with revenues at $82.2 million. And again, that's a 4.8% increase over the current year. Across all funds, expenditures are proposed to increase 5.4% from the current year to $196 million. Next slide, please. Looking at our investment in infrastructure, we have 13 road and water and sewer projects budgeted, totaling just over $31 million. Next slide. As a service provider, our employees are our most vital resource, and this slide shows the changes in our career employees budgeted to meet the needs of our residents and other stakeholders. Next slide. Looking at the graphic of our total expenditures across all funds, public safety is our largest expenditure at 28%, followed by water and sewer at 27%, roads and facilities at 19%, and then each of the remaining categories comprise less than 10% individually. Next slide. The significant changes in the funds are driven primarily by available revenues in the case of the general fund and parks and recreation fund, and then planned capital projects in the library and streets funds. Next slide. So the proposed infrastructure investments for street and water and sewer total $31 million, and we'll look at the detail on the next few slides. Next. In the local street fund, we have 3 projects totaling $2.4 million, and most of that is made up of Section 35 Phase 2. And then a small amount for the Lockdale Pump Station and Green Trees subdivision. Next slide. In the major street fund, we have projects totaling $16.3 million, including Berg Road, Northwestern Highway Service Drive, Beach Road, Shiawassee, and then 9-mile and 12-mile roads. Next slide. In our water and sewer fund, the investments we're planning are $12.4 million across 4 different projects. And some of these are done in conjunction with the roads. Sticking with water and sewer, looking at our rates are primarily charges that are passed through from our service providers for water and sewage. There is also an infrastructure replacement component. That's what that capital maintenance line there is. In total, the rate has gone up or increased by 4% over the current year. And these rates are based on 1,000 cubic feet of consumption as charged by our providers. Looking here, we see it converted to 100 cubic feet, which is how the city does our water billing. And 100 cubic feet is approximately 748 gallons, so our residents are paying less than 2 cents per gallon of water. Next slide. Other sources of revenue, our primary source of revenue is the taxable property values. So Southfield continues to recover from the devastating loss in property values due to the Great Recession. However, full recovery to 2009 levels is still several years off and continues to be hampered by Proposal A and Headley, but we are headed in the right direction. Next slide. This shows what makes up our tax base. So over the past decade, the residential portion has been slowly growing. In 2012, it was 35% of our base, and it's up to 42% presently. So maintaining that right balance that appropriate balance between these two groups is how we maintain stability and still encourage growth. Next slide. Now we can look at the actual tax rates. Overall, the tax rate increased by 0.3349 mils. And again, that's primarily attributable to the police and fire pension levy, and then a couple of smaller changes in Public Act 59 and the road bond levy. The police and fire pension levy is set based on the actuarially determined required contributions to both the pension and retiree health care funds. And this is the Act 345 millage that was voted on by the residents. Public Act 59 is capped at a maximum of $50,000 in revenue per year, so that millage varies to match that amount every year. And then the road bond levy is determined in conjunction with our bond advisors to meet our required debt requirement payments. Next slide. Tax revenues are expected to generate $67 million to fund operations, our primary services, and then $7.5 million related to drains and road bond debt. Next slide. This slide is slightly different than the one that I presented in the past couple of years. The market values for homes in the city have continued to grow, yay. So the market value here has been updated from 100,000 to 200,000 to more closely reflect the community. If we then apply a taxable value at half the market rate as a rough estimate, then we would expect a resident to pay about $2,800 in taxes, and that's comprised of $1,291 for police and fire, $661 for general operations, $175 for parks and rec, $280 for the library, and then $405 for roads, appearance, and drains. Next slide. This is a visual depiction of that property tax dollar distribution. It's just a different way of looking at the same thing. As you can see, the police and fire, that's our large support there, followed by general operations. Next slide. Yep. So here we'll look at the state shared revenue. This is the biggest chunk of money that we get from the state. As I mentioned, right after we last met, they updated their estimates. It has been growing over the past several years. However, for this coming year, it is projected to be slightly less than the current year. So total payments are estimated at $7.7 million, and that's down about $188,000 from the current year. So we've kind of looked at a high level, so now we can look at the general fund revenues in a little more detail. The revenues themselves are expected to increase just under 3.8 million or 4.8% over the current year. And I do want to point out that this does include 947,000 in use of restricted fund balance for both sanitation and the Metro Act right-of-way funds. Next slide. Property taxes are the foundation, and they represent 2/3 of general fund revenue. State revenues, which includes the state shared revenue as well as the local community stabilization dollars, our reimbursement there, are close second at 11%, followed by fees, reimbursements, and other charges at 10%. Next slide. We can take a look at the general fund expenditures. And those have moved in line with the budgeted revenues, so our total general fund expenditures are also the 82.2 million. Next slide. We can see how those are allocated. Public safety, which we'll look at in more detail on the next slide, represents 70% of general fund expenditures, followed by general government operations at a little over 16%. Next slide. The percentages that are shown here are in relation to total general fund expenditures, not just the public safety sector that's broken out here. So 1/3 of general fund expenditures budgeted for police and make up just under half of all the public safety expenditures. 1/4 of the general fund budget is dedicated to fire services. And then the remaining expenditures related to public safety include the 46th District Court, building engineering, code enforcement, and emergency preparedness. Next slide. Here we'll take a look at fund balance components. This slide shows the various components in the general fund as of our most recent audit for the year ended June 30th, 2020. The non-spendable line represents amounts already spent for such items such as inventory or prepaid expenditures. Restricted funds are those that can only be used for specific activities based on legal or statutory restrictions. This amount includes the Metro Act funds received by the city, as well as the sanitation reserves. The commitments represent amounts designated for specific uses by council action. That includes, for example, our equalization reserve, our infrastructure reserve, our tax base initiative, and Northland redevelopment. And then assigned are those that are intended for specific purposes, but have not been legally restricted or committed by council. That's primarily our POs that carry over from one year to the next, or our encumbrances. And then the unassigned fund balance, that 15.75 million there, that represents what's left, and it's often referred to as the rainy day fund. That doesn't have any specific commitments or plans for it. That unassigned portion is what rating agencies look at when they are assessing our credit rating. The fund balance policy adopted by council aligns this amount with best practices and sets that at a minimum of 15 up to 20% of subsequent years' expenditures. And the city is at the high end of that rate and should maintain that going forward. Next slide. Continue our look at fund balance. We take a look at the fund balance use that is planned across all funds. First off, in the general fund, as I noted earlier, there's a planned use of the restricted fund balance for sanitation and for the Metro Act right-of-way improvements. Cable is budgeting a use of $175,000, leaving approximately $100,000 for their future needs. The library is planning significant building improvements and equipment purchases to improve service to our residents. And then the use of fund balance in the motor pool represents prior year amounts accumulated for current and future year equipment maintenance and replacement. Next slide. Oh, that's right. So this concludes my overview of the proposed fiscal 22 budget. I would like to say some thank yous here to City Council and the Mayor for your guidance and commitment to the budgeting process and fiscal responsibility. Thank you to the City Administrator for his support and guidance throughout the process. Thank you to my awesome fiscal services team, especially Hanan Azu, Denise Bailey, and Jeff Cush. They put a lot of time and effort into this process. And finally, all the other city departments. They also put a lot of time and effort into this. Everyone came together throughout the budgeting process. This is a very collaborative work. It hasn't been easy in the time of COVID, but we found a way to make it work, and through this budget, how to keep providing the high level of service our residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. This is a public hearing, so I would like to open this up to the public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please open the lines?
Yeah, yes, Madam President, I will unmute all of the attendees. And everyone has been unmuted, and just taking consideration there is a delay for the live TV, so we may want to wait a few additional seconds if no one comes, but everyone is unmuted under the attendee list to speak during the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to the budget presentation? Okay, hearing none, I will now declare the public hearing closed. Council, this was presented to us previously, so I will go through quickly, and if you have any comments or anything that you'd like to say, please do so. And when we're not speaking, could we keep our lines muted? Thank you. I'll start with you, Mr. Brightwell.
I have no comments or questions. Thanks, Austin, for a good presentation.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Well done presentation. I think I asked all my questions already, so I'm very good. I'll move for approval when we're ready.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yes, I do have one question. First of all, I think that was an excellent presentation. One question, and that's a state shared revenue. Is that part of the state shared revenue? Is that sales tax?
Yes, sir.
And I know it's not our question to answer, but because more people are shopping online, are we getting a fair share? Are we getting the right amount of sales tax? And I know you can't answer that from your position, but I don't know if you've been talking with anybody at the state.
So technically, when you buy something online that to which sales tax should apply in your home state, you are supposed to declare that and pay the state on that, and that works via your taxes. However, the enforcement mechanism is still lacking.
Okay, so it's up in the air. It's cloudy.
Correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilman Hoskins?
Madam President?
Yes.
Yes, it's Treasurer Lowenberg. Just wanted to add in also that actually the state had received additional information regarding revenues coming in and ended up that sales taxes from online sales and in general are actually coming in much better than expected right now. So they were just updated, just I don't know if they're reflected in that, but $1 billion extra supposedly has come into the state than expected. So hopefully it should leave for some positive variances for us in state share revenue.
Thank you for that, our city treasurer. Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you, and Treasurer Lowenberg is correct. There was an extra $1 billion that we got that we didn't expect, and so I'm sure we at the state are looking forward to using that to help the rest of the state. But beyond that, I don't have any questions or comments. This was an excellent presentation, and thanks for all your good work, you and your team's good work on this, Austin.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes. Austin and team, thank you. This was a very good presentation. I believe it gets better every year. I did have two questions. The first is as it relates to the employee FTE count. Did I read it correctly that we are going to be down 16 FTEs, budgeted FTEs for this coming year?
I believe it was 12. I'm going back to that slide.
And I guess the question is, what were those 12 just based on retirements that aren't being filled, or just as like a reorg that we don't need those positions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's probably a combination of both. I know in one of our departments, they had 2 positions that had been budgeted but vacant for the past couple of years. And then they had a retirement, and they wanted to take those 3 positions and combine them into one new position. A couple others were, we've had this position budgeted for the past couple of years. Turns out when we can live without it, so let's take them out of there.
The next question I had was as it relates to going into some of our reserved funds or our balances, especially the cable budget. It looks like we're not going, after this year, our cable budget is going to be shrinking, and with less money coming in, do we have a plan in place to make sure that cable is sustainable in the future?
As of right now, no. We are discussing options for that.
Okay, but it is on the radar.
Oh, absolutely, yes, and it has been for past several years. We knew that with the fees coming in from PEG declining, that we weren't going to be able to live on that forever.
Okay. Other than that, I have no other questions. Again, this was a great presentation. And thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
All of my questions have been answered. Good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Austin, like the rest of us have already said, thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting. Thank you so much to you and your team. Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments for the budget?
I have a concern, and this is, I'm not against increased security. We need it, and this is not directed against the 46th District Court. It's, to me, I brought this up before. It's a question of fairness. So I see in the capital projects, there's 97,000 has been earmarked for security upgrades for the 46th District Court and the fire stations. I'm not sure how much is going to the court. I did earlier in the day ask Mr. Michaels, and perhaps he's found that number. But
yes, sir.
Of the security upgrades in the budget for the 46th District Court, how much of the 97,000?
Yeah, so that's 55,000 is what's included in the budget, and that's to replace the panic alarms throughout the court.
Okay. Which I'm fine with. My question really, or my comment is, over and over again, the city of Southfield pays for everything at the 46th District Court. And when the court revenues are less than what it costs to run the court, the city of Southfield foots the bill. Once again, I'm bringing this up. I think there needs to be equity, that the other communities, Franklin, Beverly Hills, Bingham Farm, Southfield Township, Lathrop Village, all should be paying on a per capita basis for the cost of the court. It's the 46th District Court. It is not the Southfield Court. So I don't know what the formula would be, but I would think, in fairness, on a per capita basis by population, that this $55,000 or the total cost of running the court, that the city of Southfield should not keep footing the bill for these things. And I don't question the need for any of this. We need a court. Where I'm coming from, again, is just a matter of equity. So I'll leave it there. I think this is something that probably should be referred to the Finance Committee. And also speaking with the court administrator. Austin, I've said this before, you have taken the complexity, and it is complex, but the way you present it has made this much more understandable, digestible for people that are not dealing with these numbers every day. So I congratulate you and your staff and thank all involved for the clarity with which this budget of $185,816,000 is presented to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, And your comments have been noted, and we will probably ask our legislative committee to take a look at what, if anything, we can do to have a more equitable distribution of expenditures. Will there be any other comments from anyone on the call?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
this is Councilman Brightwell.
yes.
The Finance Committee, we have discussed this sort of casually with the administrator off and on for several months. So if your pleasure, we can obviously put this as an agenda item this Friday, add it to our agenda to get the ball rolling. More significantly, getting the other communities to equitably fund the court and to try to come to a solution, financially.
Okay. Thank you for that. We can defer to finance, but I'd also like the legislative team to take a look as well.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And next line, I know Mr. Cruz indicated he wanted to make a motion and to adopt. I would like to second that motion if it comes forward.
Okay. So I'll put the council. Would you? I'm looking for a motion for the adoption of the budget.
Councilman Cruz makes that motion.
And
Okay, thank you very much. It's been motioned by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Brightwell, for us to adopt the budget as presented. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Brightwell,
yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
and Banks.
Yes.
And Taylor, yes.
Taylor, did I miss you? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. The budget has been approved for adoption. We are now open for communications. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone?
I will open up the lines, and anyone who's interested in talking, please press *3, but I will unmute the individuals that are in the attendee list right now.
Thank you.
Everyone has been unmuted. If anyone wants to speak, President.
Thank you. If there's anyone on the call that would like to speak under communications, please do so at this time.
No one has put *3 in, and everyone is unmuted. Oh, someone just put their hand up.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, this is my first time calling in. I just wanted to make sure that, is this part of the regular meeting?
No, this is our special budget meeting.
My mistake.
But you can go ahead and make your comments if you like. This is under communications.
Sure. I was hoping to address my comments during the regular meeting.
Okay.
But if now is, yeah, I think I'll wait.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Madam President, we do not have anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well then I will declare the regular meeting for the budget hearing closed. And we will be going into our 6 o'clock meeting. We'll take a 1-minute break here, and then we'll go right into our regular meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting for the City of Southfield, our City Council meeting for June 14th at 6 p.m. via WebEx. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hoskins,
Here.
Mandelbaum,
Present.
Frazier,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Cruz,
Present.
Banks,
Present.
and Brightwell.
Here.
Madam President, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum, would you please say the Pledge of Allegiance?
It would be my honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First, we have presentations. And our first presentation is a joint presentation from the Mayor and City Council regarding Juneteenth, the Juneteenth celebration for 2021.
Good evening, Council. I'm pleased to present a joint resolution from the Mayor and Council regarding the Juneteenth celebration, City of Southfield 2021. Whereas Juneteenth is a holiday marking the end of slavery in the United States, and whereas this year marks the 17th annual State of Michigan Juneteenth Freedom Day recognition, and whereas when Union Army General Gordon Granger landed at the Texas port city of Galveston in 1865 as the Civil War drew to a close, one of his first actions was to read General Order Number 3, which stated that all slaves are free and the former masters and slaves have absolute equality of personal and property rights. And whereas following his statement, June 19th, or Juneteenth, became the emancipation date of those long suffering for freedom. And whereas since then, as the oldest known celebration commemorating the end of slavery in America, this tradition of celebration has remained strong well into the 21st century to recognize the triumph of the human spirit over the cruelty of slavery and to honor the strength, endurance, and faith of African American ancestors. And whereas in June of 2005, Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm, my screen flipped. Hold on a minute. Sorry about that. Whereas in June 2005, Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm signed legislation officially designating the third Saturday of June as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in Michigan, and Senator Martha G. Scott sponsored Bill 384 to recognize Juneteenth as an official state holiday. And whereas it is imperative that citizens across the state join together to acknowledge a time in our history that carried on our nation's ideals of equality and democracy and celebrate the joys of liberty and justice for every American citizen. And whereas Southfield will again observe Juneteenth with a week-long celebration focusing on history, arts, entertainment, recreation, and conversation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Mayor and Council, City of Southfield, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, do hereby declare Juneteenth Celebration 2021 in the City of Southfield, Michigan, and encourage all citizens in Southfield to participate in the Juneteenth Freedom Week and celebrate African American history and culture while continuing to promote diversity, equality, and a strong sense of community in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Council,
Councilman Cruz, if
yes.
I may, I'd like to move approval of this resolution for Juneteenth celebration 2021.
Thank you.
Support. Myron Frazier.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Frazier for the adoption of the presentation or acceptance of the presentation for the joint resolution for Juneteenth celebration for 2021. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Brightwell,
Yes.
and Hoskins.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, if I may make a few more remarks.
Sure.
We have, I think the council has seen the Juneteenth week activities, but I'd like to mention some of them. And also, we have a couple of last minute changes. So we are starting the week with today with the resolution, but also we have a Juneteenth art display in the City Hall lobby. We have a Juneteenth virtual scavenger hunt that'll go on all week long. We have a Juneteenth economic freedom event that also will go on all week long, and this is creating a list of minority-owned businesses in the city. And we have a Juneteenth virtual walk for those who would not be able to or would not like to participate in the actual walk coming on Saturday. All of this can be found by going to http://bit.ly/Juneteenth details. It's also on the city website. Tomorrow night, at the Berg, the Southfield Historical Society will be hosting a historical look at Juneteenth and June 19th, 1865. And also, I mentioned this last year when we were doing the census, promoting the 2020 census. The 1860 census lists a number of African Americans who were living in Southfield Township at the time. And we have a display at the Historical Society tomorrow night. We're calling them Freedom Finders, the folks that came to work in Southfield Township as freedmen. On Wednesday, June 16th, Jazz and Blues concert will return to the library. Luther Badman Keith Blues Band will be performing on the outdoor patio. June 17th, we have a mystery meetup outside the Parks and Rec building at 9 a.m. And then at 10:30 a.m., Juneteenth Conversation and Treats at Picnic Shelter number 1. And at 6:30, virtually, library Zoom event. You can find this on the library website. In the Midst of the Storm, Oakland County's anti-slavery and abolition activism, which also is included at the Governor's Church north of the library. And on Friday from 1 to 3, we will have Black Cowboy L.C. Caudell at the Beachwoods patio with treats and other entertainment. And you can find out information about this through the Parks and Recreation Department on our city website. And we have a concert on Friday night that originally was just planned as a concert in the city, but instead we're including it as part of our Juneteenth event. And this is Larry Lee and in the Back in the Day band, and this will be on the front lawn at 7 o'clock. And then on Saturday, June 19th, we have the Mayor's Juneteenth Walk at 10 a.m. It's a 5K event. No, you do not have to register for this. Just show up with your walking shoes, and we will do the 5K down and up Evergreen and around over to the Red Pole Park and back, stopping at the Governor's Church and the Underground Railroad marker. At noon, the Omega chapter of AKA will do a webinar and raffle. And again, this can be found on the the city's website. And then, and here's a slight change. At 7 p.m., we're doing the movie Miss Juneteenth. This was going to be $10 registration, and it was going to be in the parking lot, but instead, it will be free. If you pre-registered, your money will be refunded, and it'll be on the front lawn. And we have a special screen, so even so, it's still light out at 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Participants, it's open to all. Again, it's free. Just bring a lawn chair. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have our presentation of the joint resolution for the LGBTQ Pride Month.
And I believe this is going to be Councilman Hoskins.
Yes, Councilman Hoskins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I am happy, I guess I'm proud to present this joint resolution from the mayor and city council declaring June as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month. Whereas the city of Southfield is committed to supporting the visibility, dignity, and equity of all people in our city. And whereas the city of Southfield benefits from the multiple talents, viewpoints, and cultural backgrounds of all of its residents. And whereas LGBTQ people have made and continue to make considerable contributions to the city of Southfield, including in the fields of education, law, community health and well-being, economic development, sports, government, music, technology, literature, civil rights, visual arts, and politics. And whereas Pride began 51 years ago in 1970 with the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Riots. In 1969, Black LGBTQ individuals, along with others, risked their lives to protest the over-policing of the LGBTQ community and the injustice that threatened their existence on a daily basis. This multi-day protest became known as the Stonewall Riots and is credited by many for starting the modern-day LGBTQ equality movement. And whereas while advancements have been made, there remains significant opposition with respect to the equitable treatment of LGBTQ people in their communities, and is therefore important for cities like Southfield to demonstrate support for such residents. And whereas June has become a symbolic month around the world for LGBTQ people and allies to come together in various celebrations of acceptance, equality, and pride. And whereas communities throughout Michigan and around the world will host events to celebrate the LGBTQ community throughout the month of June, therefore, be it resolved that we, the mayor and city council of the city of Southfield, do hereby declare June 2021 as LGBTQ Pride Month in the city of Southfield, and invites city of Southfield residents to reflect on the ways we live and work together with the commitment to mutual respect and understanding for all people. And be it further resolved that this resolution is, well, we'll get to that point in a second. I turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Council, do I have a motion?
This is Councilman Mandelbaum. I'd
Yes.
like to move that we approve the joint mayor and city council resolution for Pride Month.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Frazier for the adoption of the joint resolution from the mayor and city council for the LGBTQ Pride Month. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Frazier? Frazier?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Brightwell?
Yes.
Haskins?
Yes.
And Mandelbaum?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hoskins, you wanted to add?
No, I just thank the council for passing this resolution. This is only the second time we've done this. And so I think it is very important that we do things like this to show that we are a community that values and supports as residents, that we value diversity and equality and equity here in Southfield. So I thank the council for their support on this.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we have next appointments. And we have 2 reappointments to the Historic District Commission. Mr. Mayor, I believe this is yours.
Yes, they are. I'm asking the council to approve the reappointments of persons who have been serving on this commission and done a good job. Corey Moffett has been a member of the commission since 2018, and he brings very valuable experience to this body. And then Dr. Dale A. Geyer, who is the head of the architectural department at Lawrence Tech, and is very deeply knowledgeable on architectural history and historic preservation. So I'm asking for the reappointment of both of these gentlemen.
Madam Chair?
This is Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
I'd like
Go ahead, Councilman Cruz.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move the reappointment of Dr. Dale Geyer and Corey Moffett to the Historic District Commission, presented by the mayor.
Councilman Mandelbaum seconds.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, for the acceptance of the reappointment to the Historic District Commission of both Dr. Dale Geyer and Mr. Corey Moffett. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Inks,
Yes.
Brightwell,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
and Frazier.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 1 set of minutes to be approved, the regular meeting of April 26, 2021.
Madam Chair, this is Councilman Brightwell. I would like to ask for a point of privilege at this particular point.
Yes, sir.
In those minutes that are coming, I'm registered as I'm recorded as voting no on the consent agenda for April 26th. And I would like to just explain specifically why I'm registered or in a recorded as voting no on the consent agenda for April 26th. And it was, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go right ahead.
Okay. It was pointed out to me by the clerk and that I did vote no verbally. However, the reason I voted no, there was a technical issue. Electronics was malfunctioning, and they did not hear me in a recorded that I objected to item G and J. And I wanted to pull those 2 items for additional questioning in or explanation because of the I had some serious questions about them. So when it came up voting for the consent agenda, I could not in good conscience vote yes for the full consent agenda. So I voted no. That was the reason for my voting no, because there were 2 issues, item G and J. I had some serious questions about that. And so that's the explanation for the general public and also for the record as to why I voted no. And then it came to my attention that there are quite a few no's associated with my name, and this is just to indicate to us. Well, I brought it up, and I'll bring it up again during comment that we should go ahead and initiate that Robert's Rules of Order class in a session to take under consideration the electronic situation are in now, and we had to have some rules and or explain when electronics cause hiccups in the normal flow of events. So, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Council, may I have a motion?
This Councilman, will make a motion, we accept the regular meeting minutes of April 26, 2021.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz for the approval of our regular meeting of April 26, 2021 minutes. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Banks,
Yes.
Brightwell,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier.
I have a question. What's the appropriate protocol for someone that's not on the council at the time the meeting was held on voting on this?
It's your pleasure. But we're in the middle of the roll call, so it's just you gotta say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. Taylor?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. We're seeking the approval for our consent agenda items A through I.
Madam
Council?
President,
Yes.
Councilman Cruz would like to move approval of consent agenda items A through I.
Council Mandelbaum seconds.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum for the approval of consent agenda items A through I. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Brightwell?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Mandelbaum?
Yes.
Frazier?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
And Banks?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we come to our public hearing and site plan portion of the agenda. The first item is item A, which is amended and restated Brownfield redevelopment plan and tax increment financing plan for Northland City Center LLC Northland redevelopment. And at this time, I would please ask, if you are not speaking, to please mute your line. We're getting some feedback and it's just making it a little bit harder for us to hear. So if you're not speaking, could you please mute your line? Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam President. This is Rochelle Freeman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Good evening,
Wonderful.
Rochelle.
Good evening. City staff is in receipt of a request from Northland City Center LLC for the approval of their Brownfield redevelopment plan, tax increment finance plan, and development and reimbursement agreement for Northland redevelopment in Hudson City Center Market. This project serves as yet another positive example of the City of Southfield's contribution to the economic comeback of Southeast Michigan. Contour Companies LLC is seeking to redevelop the vacant mall within the Downtown Development Authority. This project will ultimately enhance the city's tax base and allow the city to collect brownfield redevelopment loan funds for future environmental site remediation and demolition. This project was approved by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority on May 10th and at the Committee of the Whole meeting on May 24th. We have a short presentation, after which we would like to hold a public hearing. And upon completion of the public hearing, we're seeking this honorable's approval of the amended and restated Brownfield Redevelopment Plan, tax increment financing plan, and development and reimbursement agreement for the Northland City Center LLC Southfield Brownfield redevelopment project, and direct the city attorney to prepare the required development and reimbursement agreement for the project using the attached resolution. I have the representatives from Contour as well as our city attorney on the phone, on the line to give that presentation. So I'd like to turn it over to David at this time, please.
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, City Council members. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is David Dedrukai with Contour Companies. Thank you, Shelley, for the introduction. Would you please have someone start the slide? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There it is. Thank you. So the project consists of two phases. Phase one is a 1,500 unit mixed-use apartment community consisting of dynamic workforce housing in 14 5-story buildings. 6 buildings will have a commercial component on the ground floor facing Greenfield Road, giving residents the convenience of hopping downstairs to pick up groceries, dinner, or anything from the local market. Dale Hudson's Pro store will be restored to use as a Hudson City Market, vibrant food hall, home furnishing marketplace filled with dining and entertainment options. Eventually, phase 2 along Northwest Highway will have more mixed-use residential components, possibly a hotel, townhouses, and a nice landscaped area for an amphitheater. The landmark power plant will become a community clubhouse, and the familiar Northland Water Tower will remain and be restored. Next slide, please. The multifamily market in Southfield, we believe, is a strong market. The city of Southfield has over 11,000 existing multifamily units at a positive 94.5% occupancy rate. We believe that the city's 72,000 residents and over 100,000 people that commute there per day, it is possible to capture a lot of that on this site, which could be one of the nicest sites in the area. Being that it's in Oakland County, being that it's 20 minutes from Detroit, being that it's 30 minutes from the airport, we believe that the proximity to the suburbs and the surrounding areas is an excellent location for this style of mixed-use development. Floor plans consist of 5 different floor plans to accommodate different families or different lifestyles. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The commercial market, I think, is one of the most important markets to look at on the leakage of how much money leaves the city of Southfield on an annual basis. Through databases, we have found out that $645 million leave through this market and go to different markets in the area. We believe that if you add a mixed-use development like this with over 600,000 square feet of retail component, this becomes a destination for the entire region to come to. Next slide, please. The types of tenants interested in this site are service and retail, movie theater, food hall, corporate offices, hotels, medical, and pharmacy. This will become a neighborhood venue. Potential entrepreneurs will be able to open up restaurants, open up bars, and different possibilities are just endless with this density and size of a mixed-use development. We also plan on adding a 5,000 square foot police station and training center on site. We believe that'll benefit the community for the long haul. Next slide, please. Projected IRR for this will be about 11%. If we do not get the incentive package, it will dwindle down to 4%. This project is too high of a risk without the incentive package that we are discussing tonight. Quite frankly, rebuilding a site the size of the existing Hudson Center and the surrounding buildings would be almost impossible in today's standards with budgets. Next slide. This shows a site map of the existing site plan that we have. As you see, we've broken down in different phases. Phase 1A has 2 buildings consisting of over 200 units and 36,000 square feet of commercial space. Phase 1I, which is the Hudson City Center, will be cleaned up and demoed during that Phase 1A also. So then it will continue throughout the phase until the completion, which we believe would be about a 5-year project. Next phase. These are images of our mid-century design. We want to respect the past and the history of this site, but also bring it with future amenities like rooftop pools, rooftop fire pits, boulevards, canopies. So this site is very walkable throughout, even during the winter conditions. It is, and the vitality of it is crucial to it. Being over 100 acres, we want to be able to have a community that everybody's incorporated with one another, and this becomes with a city within a city eventually. Next slide. This is the sources of capitals. If you go to the next slide. Contour is going to acquire the property for cash. The city is going to contribute $20.1 million. The overall financing will be just over $310 million, and the overall budget is $402 million for the entire phase 1 project. The next slide. This shows different phases of the financing, from equity in place to construction financing, all the way to permit financing. Next slide. This is a commitment letter from our lender. Next slide. And I think, Neil, you can take it from here on the incentive package from the state and the city.
Yes. Hi, Councilman and Chairperson. First, I think the good news since the last time we had any discussion was that the state of Michigan has issued its letter of intent, which means it's going to support the project with the use of school tax. They're going to be formally meeting on July 27th. This slide shows a breakdown of all of the eligible activities that are intended to be spent at the site. Eligible activities for this site would be lead, asbestos abatement, public infrastructure, demolition, and environmental. The $64,173.75 is going to be paid. 37, close to 38 million of that will be actually fronted by the developer and wait for tax increment financing increments to be available. The remaining 20 million, close to $21 million, will be paid for the city, and I'll explain where those funds are coming from in a second. In addition, the city has already expended $4.1 million in eligible activity costs prior to this developer coming on board, and this plan will allow the city to recapture those funds. In order to protect the investment, I think you go to the next slide. They're going to have to show the city that they not only have the money to complete each specific eligible activity that they're requesting that the city advance funds for, but they're also going to have to show that they have sufficient funds to complete that sub-phase of the project for which the source of funds is going to be used. The city will verify the eligibility and look at lien waivers like a construction draw, and the money will actually be fronted directly to their contractors through a construction draw process with a title company. There will be no direct pay or any reimbursement. If they default under the reimbursement agreement, we don't get the 3A1 work plan approved by the state, or they default under the terms of the development agreement. I think it's important that you know that there will be increments available on day one as the property will go back onto the tax rolls. The property is currently in the DDA, and the DDA will capture the first 15% of the available increments. The rest of the 85% will go back to reimburse either the city or the developer for eligible activity costs. Again, the city will capture its 4.1 that it's previously spent, and the $21 million is essentially, if you look at the graph on the chart, comes from insurance proceeds that we received. That money is earmarked towards demolition, The $6.8 million is money that has been earmarked through bonds for city water and city sewer related expenses. And the $9.5 million is essentially the net proceeds of the sale that would be put back into the project. Whenever there are eligible increments available for disbursement, they will be done in a pro rata fashion based upon who has what in the project at that time. So when for instance, at the first time there's eligible TIF money and the city has 60% of all the eligible activity dollars in, then we would get 60% of that increment and they would get 40, and so on for each draw. We've come up with, I believe, and I think the city believes, a pretty protective development agreement that keeps them to pretty tough timeframes and default provisions. Their plan calls for a 17-year payback. The development reimbursement agreement caps their ability to get anything from the city at 20 years, giving them just a little bit of leeway. In the event that they were to default and they were no longer eligible for any tax increment financing reimbursements, that would not prohibit the city from continuing to collect on tax increments that are generated at the property to repay themselves. I believe that covers all the things I wanted to make sure you're aware of and available for question.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, David. Madam President, that concludes our presentation. After the public hearing, we'll be available for questions, as well as Al Aceves, who is the DDA director, is also available.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I just want quickly, just point of clarification. Earlier, Ms. Freeman said that it was the city attorney, but it was actually the Brownfield attorney. It wasn't our city attorney, it was the Brownfield attorney that was
correct.
within this presentation. Just for
Thank you for that correction.
Mm-hmm.
This is a public hearing. I will now declare the public hearing open for the amendment to the restated Brownfield Development Plan. Madam Clerk, would you please unmute all lines or open all lines?
I will.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one moment. Okay. Let me know when you're ready for me to start.
I'm ready.
Okay, hit it, babe. Okay, Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. I'm in total support, I believe, of this project. I'll tell you what I like. I like the fact that the area is going to be developed, and it's an entry point or a gateway into the city of Southfield coming north from 8 Mile. And it's no secret that that 8 Mile corridor needs a major development that the city can be proud of. I'm also in support of this project because the developer is willing to build a state-of-the-art police department. And we did have a downtown station in that area, and I think that the people over on that end of town, including me, we feel a bit insecure that we don't have that station anymore. And the other reason why I support this project is because I like the fact that you're trying to preserve the institution of the Hudson's building, and I wish you much success. But I am concerned about a couple of things. I heard the developer say that you have a commitment letter from the lender. Okay, that's great. I think I heard you also say that on 7/27 there's going to be a meeting and that this project was going to be funded by school taxes. Now, are we talking about school taxes that each resident pays in the municipality, or are we talking about school money, meaning you're getting some of the lottery money that is intended for the schools? That's one question. The second question was, the developer mentioned something about $38 million coming from you up front, and that you wanted to protect the investment and show that you have the funds to complete the project. I heard $310 million, I heard $402 million, and I think I heard that the city is going to commit $20 million. What I want to know is who's going to be the fiduciary of that money. So I want to know, are you going to give the money to the city of Southfield for safekeeping so that if something does happen, we're not out of anything? Would you be willing to do that? And I like the fact of the construction draw, but I'm concerned only about if the market changes again, have you made plans and provisions to continue it anyway? Thank you. I am in support.
Thank you. Is there another? Okay, hearing none, I will now declare the public hearing closed. And council, I will turn to you. Councilman Cruz. Okay, Councilman Frazier.
Just one question. The monies that were talked about in the brownfield, we have some other property that we're selling, and all. I just want to make sure that none of that gets dealt with in this. This is completely separate, hands off with anything else that we're selling.
That's correct. This is completely separate.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins.
No questions for me on this. I'm just really excited to get this going. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum.
No questions either. I think this presentation laid it out very nicely. And like Councilman Hoskins says, I'm excited to see this get going.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks.
No questions. Everything was answered in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Cruz.
No questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shelley.
Madam President, I just want to clarify again, the school taxes, the community is held harmless when the school taxes are granted through the state process. So there will be no adverse effect on the school system. And again, regarding the fiduciary responsibility of the city, we will have a team in place, and we are going to be monitoring those funds very closely. The dollars will come to the city, and they will be, again, paid back through the process that Mr. Silver spoke of, a construction draw type process. So if there isn't any other questions. Oh.
Did Mr. Lecevis want to have a comment?
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Administrator Zorn. I just wanted to comment on the school portion. You know, there is a reality that there will be some new students who live in this community. That will be additional headcount for the school. And as Ms. Freeman said, the school district is held harmless, but each headcount and all of our school districts are desperately seeking, new students will be paid the per capita fee by the state for those students.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, this is Al Lecevis. I would just like to say that the stakeholders in the DDA are extremely excited about this project. It's been long overdue. I continue to get calls from individuals within the city as well as outside of the city asking when the apartments or townhouses might be available. So I think that the project is beginning to draw interest from outside the Southfield area, and we strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley, any other comments?
Again, we just really appreciate everyone's support. This has been a long project and everyone has worked really hard to bring this project to fruition. And, you know, we have the attached resolution for city council's approval. The administration is supporting the resolution. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mayor, did you want to make a comment?
I would only add that we're all very excited about finally reaching this point. It's taken roughly a year since we began the dialogue with the contour companies. I'm particularly excited because of the community input that we gathered early on in 2016, shortly after we took possession of Northland property. We have a great vision, and Contour Companies is basically fulfilling that whole vision. I think they're actually exceeding it in a number of respects. Also, as a proponent of adaptive reuse, I really think it's unsustainable that everything gets, we no longer need something that served a purpose, so we tear it down, throw it away. I'm very, very pleased that Contour will be repurposing most of the mall with the newer portions that are less historically significant and probably not as well constructed as the original 1954 mall. I'm just very, very glad to see that we have that adaptive reuse and honoring the history of the site as it was the world's first modern shopping mall. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I'd like to entertain a motion.
This is Councilman Mandelbaum.
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the amended and restated Brownfield Development Plan and Tax Increment Financing Plan and a development and reimbursement agreement for the Northland City Center LLC SBRA project.
Support. This is Councilman Hoskins.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Hoskins for the approval of the amended and restated Brownfield redevelopment plan. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
and Brightwell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you all from Contour. We appreciate it and we look forward to starting this project.
Thank you. We look forward to it as well. Item B is the rezoning request of Selco Partnership.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Planner Crode. Good afternoon to everyone. Next slide, please. As stated, this is both a rezoning request, PZR 21-0004, and the companion site plan review, PSP 21-0007. Petitioner Selco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless, located at 24242 Northwestern Highway. The existing zoning is OS Office Service with P vehicular parking on the northeast portion of the property. Proposed zoning is ERO Education Research Office with some vehicular parking as a buffer. And the site plan review request is to demolish a portion of the existing building to construct approximately 44,000 gross square foot addition for administration, plus computer and electrical equipment necessary to support the mobile network. Next slide. Again, this is just a larger aerial. It's located south of 10 Mile and on the northbound Northwestern Highway Service Drive. Next slide. A close-up of existing conditions. Next slide. And as stated, future land use does support office research, education, or the ERO zoning request. Next slide. And on the left is the existing zoning, and on the right is the proposed zoning. Next slide. The portion that's highlighted in red is the part of the building that will be demolished. Next slide. And then here's the new configuration, more of an L-shaped building that will house the new data processing center. Next slide. Here's a rendered landscape plan. There's some additional landscaping that's been added at the southwest corner of the property to screen the required electrical transformer to power the buildings, and the landscaping to the northwest to provide additional landscape screening and buffering for the residential. Next slide. And this is just the approved landscape plan as submitted. Next slide. Next slide. Photometric plan that meets our regulations. Next slide. And with this, I'd like to turn it over to Scott Fisher, who's representing the applicant, to talk about the in-house equipment and why the expansion is needed.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, City Council. My name is Scott Fisher with Midwestern Consulting. Our address is 3815 Plaza Drive, Ann Arbor, Michigan 48108. What really has prompted the need for this expansion is the continuing expansion of the Verizon wireless network, including the heavy abundance of data usage. As you can see on the floor plan presented of the expansion, the current left half of it is actually all dedicated to computers and their associated electrical equipment. That is in addition to the building that is to remain, which is also computer and electrical equipment space. So this is data is very much driving the need for more space for them. Currently, the site does have administrative staff that provide a variety of services, and that most of that will be maintained on the right side of the building. There will be a small reduction in the amount of staff on site. However, those staff will, they're not losing their jobs by any means. They're just simply being relocated to other offices located in the city of Southfield.
Next slide, please. Scott, do you want to just give a high-level overview of the elevation changes for the new building?
Sure. The proposed expansion is actually going to be shorter than the portion of the building that is to remain. And the building as a whole, both the part to remain and the expansion will be painted. They'll be of the same materials, and then they'll be painted all at once so that there's a consistent coloration.
Next slide, please. And you want to just talk about the loading and drop-off area?
Sure. So along the northerly side of the building, there is a truck dock area of, as you can imagine, these computers are quite large, so they do have room for semis to bring in and drop them off. And associated with them is there are mechanical air handlers that are located on the backside of the building. That's what some of these squares and rectangles are representing.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And this is just showing a view from Northwestern Highway. They did a real nice job in trying to preserve the mature landscaping and trees, and did add some additional arborvitaes and landscape screening Note there's a decorative ornamental security fence that's required around the outside transformer. Next slide. And this is just a typical of this type of equipment that needs to be located to provide the power for the expansion. Next slide. And then, Scott, if you have any final comments before we go into the public hearing on the need, overall need, and anything else that we might have left out, this is your opportunity to do that. Then after the public hearing, you and myself will be available to answer questions of the council may have. Thank you.
Yep. Two quick comments that I'll make. One is that something I had not mentioned previously is currently the site does not have any stormwater management system of any kind. And as part of this project, we will be upgrading the portion of the site that's being developed to have a 100-year detention volume. So that should help if there are any current stormwater issues in the area, we should be having a good impact on those. And the only other item I would make mention of is our project is large enough that as part of it, we will be making a contribution to the city's art fund so that the city, their staff, and all the residences can have input on a nice piece of art somewhere within the city.
Great. And one other minor item, but you did provide pedestrian connectivity for your employees and visitors through a secure gate, but there will be a pedestrian connection should any employees take the bus, ride a bike, or want to walk to work. With that, Madam Chair, we turn it over to you. The public hearing is only on the proposed rezoning from OS to ERO, and then we'll be happy to talk about site plan issues after you take action on the proposed rezoning and close the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would like to now declare the public hearing open for the rezoning request of Selco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. Madam Clerk, would you unmute the lines?
The lines have been unmuted.
Thank you.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there's still a little bit more static on the phone, and I didn't get what they want to take the zoning from to. So what is it currently zoned as?
Okay, it's currently, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I was just going to jump in with your permission.
Yes, please.
It's currently zoned office service and vehicular parking. In order for them to have the data center component, they need to rezone to education research office with vehicular parking, and that is consistent with the future land use plan.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the clarification. Well, I know that, Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. I just wanted to say that Verizon has been a fixture in our Southfield community for many, many years. I think that they have been great corporate citizens, or at least they were prior to the pandemic, and I'm hoping that they can continue to support the community and the residents that have supported them. I'm looking for Verizon to be very involved in a lot of the youth and senior activities, but it seems as if this is a great thing to go from the OSVP to the Research and Office VP without any serious ramifications or harm to the community. But in the famous words of Councilman Lloyd Cruz, he likes to ask about greater inclusion, diversity, equity, and respect. So I'm wondering, for the sake of our esteemed councilman, can you speak to anything about greater inclusion, diversity, equity, and respect? And are there going to be any minority contractors involved in doing this project? And I've only used about 1 minute and 35 seconds, So if I could get someone to maybe answer that real quickly, it would be great. If not, I can just keep on talking. And I just want to encourage the developer and this company. You know, we've got an election coming up, and I know sometimes a lot of our council people like to come to some of the petitioners and ask for a donation for their campaign. And I'm just going to encourage you to maybe not do that. You don't have to give a campaign contribution. They're voting on the project, and it doesn't matter whether they donate to your campaign or not. I'm seeking to get a resolution or procedure to the point that forbid council members to ask for a donation from petitioners that are appearing before them. I don't like the connotation. I don't like the perception, but I think I'm in support of this. I really appreciate Verizon. They've got some great looking facilities. Prior to my mother passing away, she had Verizon for many, many years. So I'm in favor, and I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I will now declare the public hearing closed. And I will go to you, council. And I'll start with you, Jason, Mr. Hoskins.
No questions for me on this. Thank you.
Councilman Mandelbaum,
No questions on the rezoning. Thank you.
Councilwoman Banks,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilman Brightwell,
No questions.
Councilman Cruz,
Madam President, no questions necessarily. Just want to be clear on the fact that this evening we did, speaking to the caller in front of us, we did pass a approval for position for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's not that it is me that is just arguing for this fact. And I know Verizon's history and been very satisfied with it. But when I do see opportunity to speak to it, if I need to, I will. And I'm not afraid of that. I just wanted to know that this is really it's a city issue, and we want to make sure that we're always living in a space that is encompassing diversity, equity, and inclusion for everyone. So thank you.
thank you. And Councilman Frazier,
No questions.
thank you. Mr. Crode,
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's the desire of the council. We would first ask a motion to approve the rezoning request and then a separate motion to introduce ordinance number 1740.
okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilman Brightwell,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the ordinance request. The rezoning request.
okay,
I support.
thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz for the approval of the rezoning request of Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, PZR 21-0004. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Brightwell,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes,
Cruz,
Yes.
and Banks.
Yes.
and now we would need the motion for the introduction of ordinance number 1740.
Madam President, Councilman Cruz, I move approval of or move the introduction of ordinance 1740.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Brightwell for the introduction of ordinance number 1740. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Brightwell,
Yes.
Haskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
and Banks.
Yes.
Mr. Crode?
Yes, thank you. Next, if the council has any questions regarding PSP 21-0007, which is the component site plan review for Selco partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless.
Okay, I will start with the council. Mr. Mandelbaum?
No, the only comment that I have is I like all the additional greenery that will be added to help buffer from the neighborhood. Other than that, I have nothing against or against this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilman Brightwell?
I have a question. With respect to stormwater runoff, I know this new development will require to do something with stormwater runoff. Has any other developer with proximity had to implement stormwater runoff within the last couple of years?
Well, this is Planner Crowd. We require on a site-by-site basis, if there's any new development or major redevelopment, the city engineer calculates the increase in impervious surface, and it's that portion of impervious surface that needs to be treated with the 100-year flood and the stormwater. So on a site-by-site basis, this is what we've been requiring all along.
Sure. Yeah, I'm aware. But I was wondering, does anyone else within the proximity of this particular site had to do, or did you have enough development within the proximity of this one? They had to do a stormwater runoff. This is a carryover from my days on site plan, and stormwater runoff is something that I'm constantly interested in.
Right. Well, I don't recall any new development in this immediate vicinity in the last several years.
Okay, well, that's good enough. Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Sorry. Yes, I don't have anything else to go with this. I just wanted to make sure that we were following protocol, and if we needed to actually open up a public hearing for this item.
No, it's a site plan.
Oh,
and we don't. Yes.
Yeah. You're correct. There's no public hearing for site plan, and if I could, the window, maybe you could move forward a couple slides. Continue.
Okay. I just checking. That's all. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
I think we did. We covered everything.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Councilman Frazier?
Just one question. Has the water retention method been designed? Is it a pond, or it was with agricultural absorption, or
Yes.
is it going to be a tanker?
Scott, can you address that, please?
Absolutely. The stormwater will end up being in underground pipes located along the southeasterly portion of the building under the service drive, as well as under the parking lot. It will be a closed system because we have clay soils down to 15, 20 feet. So unfortunately, clay doesn't really absorb water very quickly. So we are not planning to infiltrate.
How do you get rid of it when it's full? It's like a septic tank without a drain field.
Right. So there is a city sewer located along Northwestern Highway that we are connecting to, and that sewer is at a lower elevation than our site. So we will have a restriction in order to keep water on our site for a longer period of time, and it will then slowly discharge into the city's storm sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
In layman's terms, Scott, that you will release that water at the agricultural rate of what it would have been if that's just a fallow field.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Great question. Councilman Hoskins?
No questions for me on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Crode?
Just that we have our recommended resolution, and we are in support of approving the site plan. So at this time, if there's no further questions from the council, we'd be happy if you entertain a motion to approve.
Okay, council?
Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve PSP 21-0007 and the recommended resolution provided by the city planner.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Brightwell for the approval of PSP 21-0007, the site plan review request of the Selco partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
Frazier,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
and Brightwell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please. Next slide. The next public hearing is PSLU 21-005, which is a special use request of the Luxe Ballroom on behalf of the owner of Solo Company LLC to allow for an event center as a place of assembly located at 23835 Greenfield Road. Next slide. And on the right is the location just south of Mount Vernon and to the west of Greenfield Road. They're backfilling a vacant retail space. Existing zoning is B2. And what the council is deliberating on tonight is allowing for the special land use permit for this event center as a place of assembly. Next slide. Next slide, please. And again, this is just a close-up view of the existing shopping center that had the former Kroger grocery store as a major anchor on the south side of the property. Next slide. And the future land use and the current zoning are compatible. Next slide. And the area in red with north being to the left of the slide is the backfill space where the special use request being considered. The yellow area, the 68,000 square feet is the former Kroger store, and then there's also another 4,000 square feet available. Next slide. And this is looking at the approximate location of where the event center will be located. I believe it's in the former beauty supply. Next slide. And here's the general layout of the event center. I believe not to exceed 100 attendees. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Dynthia Fletcher, who's the proprietor, to talk about her proposal. We also have Mr. Fred Nager, who's the property owner, and Mr. Alice Sevis, our DDA director, that may have a few comments as well. So maybe if I could, Madam Chair, I'll ask Mr. Sevis if he's still on, if he wants to make a couple general comments, and then we'll go to the proprietor.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair and honorable council members. As with the previous discussion on the Northland City Center LLC, we're very committed to helping the major development move in a positive direction as it has suffered some vacancies over the last year. On behalf of the DDA, we believe that this is more of a retention assistance as opposed to something new which the Northland property offers. But we also think that retention in the district is just as important. So we hope this evening that the council will look favorably upon this request. Thank you.
Ms. Fletcher, do you want to introduce yourself again and just talk a little bit about your business and why you chose this site, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Crude. Madam President, City Council, Mayor, thank you again for the opportunity to present my plans for bringing my business to the city of Southfield. So the Luxe Ballroom is a private event venue. I previously operated in Farmington Hills for 2 years, from March 2019 up until recently, March of 2021, and decided at that time to relocate and also expand my business into a larger space, and I chose this space. Ideally located on Greenfield. The parking is sufficient for the volume of events that I hold. Mr. Fred Major, as well as the DDA, has been very supportive, and I extremely appreciate their assistance with helping me move this project along. Just to correct Mr. Crude, the approximate location of this space is not the beauty supply, is actually the Renner Center that was there previously.
All right, thanks for correcting me. Yep, thank you.
No problem. So again, this space is going to occupy no more than about 100 guests per event. Also, to correct myself from our previous meeting last week, our hours of operation was changed to 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. and that's on Monday through Sunday, just to accommodate any earlier event request. We have a relationship with a security company, which we've used in the past. So all of our events will be attended by a licensed and bonded insurance company. We do not accept any cash or store any cash on site. So that liability is excluded. All of our bookings is done through our website. This will be our only location since we're no longer operating from the Farmington Hills location. Again, that location was closed as of March. So this will be our sole location. All of our business increase that we have received up until now has been based on moving to the city of Southfield. The type of events that we have are weddings, wedding receptions, wedding showers, baby showers, occasionally corporate meetings and events, occasionally repast services or seminars, but we do disallow any team parties and any paid events. Those events are not allowed. And we do have sufficient means of emergency egress, both through the front entrance, and then there's also an emergency exit at the rear of the building. And there's no food that will be prepared on site. So all of the food will be prepared by an approved list of catering companies. And we'll also offer catering opportunities to some of the local restaurants and businesses in the city of Southfield to cater our events as well. And then the issue of parking, there's more than enough parking at this plaza. So, and we do, depending on the type of event and the guest count, we do offer valet services as well to our clients, in which they will park furthest from the front of the center so that the parking isn't blocked from any of the CVS customers or the beauty supply or any of the other neighboring businesses. We've been in contact also with the Crime Prevention Department in Southfield, as well as our own security that we have on site. We'll also work with the law enforcement when necessary. Whenever we need to get them involved, of course we will. So I'm open to any questions or concerns. And again, thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. We're going to go to Mr. Nager, and then we'll open the public hearing. And then after the public hearing is closed, council will ask questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Nager, do you have any final comments before we go to the public hearing?
Yes, I'd just like to say I'm just happy the city worked with us very well, moving this forward. And Ms. Fletcher, I believe is going to be a very good fit for reusing the Rent-A-Center space. And I think she'll do extremely well. So I'm very pleased with it. And I hope it moves forward. And I wish her good luck.
With that, Madam Chair, we'll turn it back over to you to open the public hearing.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to open the public hearing for the PSLU 21-0005 special use request for the Luxe Ballroom. Madam Clerk, would you please open the line?
The lines are open, Madam President.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, this is Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. And I would like to thank Ms. Fletcher for bringing such a business to the city of Southfield, and especially in that area. You know, it is a gateway to the city of Southfield, coming from Oak Park and coming from north of 8 Mile. And everybody in Southfield knows that I have talked about rebuilding that 8 Mile corridor in our city so that we can be a state-of-the-art and a great gateway from other areas. But I would like to ask you a question, if it's not too forward. You said that you used to be in Farmington Hills. The first question would be, why did you leave Farmington Hills? I am very pleased with the fact that you mentioned that you did consult our public safety department and crime prevention. That was one of my questions. But I'd like to know, will you be able to answer, or Mr. Nager? And they have great developments in our city. And everybody knows Mr. Nager and his son, or the son and his father. But I'd like to ask you and Mr. Nager, are you going to have fire suppression sprinklers in your business? I would also like to know about the security. You said that you have your own security company. I think I heard you say that they were licensed and bonded, but are you going to still, and you may have said it, I didn't hear you if you did, and I apologize, are you still going to keep in touch with our police department? And I'm just concerned about the midnight hour, because a lot of times when places have, the midnight hour and they're not a club, sometimes they can attract people from other areas, and that's what I'm concerned about. And will you allow any drinking or alcohol on the premises, and have you filed for any type of cabaret license that would allow you to have alcohol on the premises? And thank you so much for considering Southfield and bringing your business to our area, the center of it all. And I wish you much success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I will now declare the public hearing closed. I'm sorry, was there someone else? Okay, hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed, and I will go to council, starting with you, Councilwoman Banks.
All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
No questions. All my questions were answered, and I think we asked quite a few last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
I have no questions either. I think we talked in this long enough already. And again, Ms. Fletcher, we just want to welcome you to the city. Glad to have your organization here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins?
No questions for me on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Mandelbaum?
I think this is a great reuse of the empty storefront. So welcome to the city.
Thank you. Planner Crow, did you want to read your recommendation?
Well, yeah, I just want to, based on the petitioner's comments about the hours of operation, I want to correct the what we have in our recommendation. And that was a recommendation that she doesn't limit herself or pigeonhole herself to too short of hours. So the only change I have on our favorable recommendation is item 1. The hours of operation shall be limited to 9 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday. Other than that, we're in favor of this special land use request.
Okay, thank you. Council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes.
I'd like to move the approval of PSLU PSLU 21-0005, as well as the recommendation of the city planner with the change of hours of operation.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz for the approval of PSLU 21-0005. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mandelbaum?
Yes.
Frazier?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Brightwell?
Yes.
And Hoskins?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the enactment of ordinance number 1739.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes.
I'd like to move that we enact ordinance number 1739.
May I have a support?
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman it's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Brightwell, for the approval of the enactment of ordinance number 1739, which is PZRODD 21-0001, the proposal to amend the existing ODD Overlay Development District Development Agreement. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Frazier? Frazier?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Brightwell?
Yes.
And Banks, I have the yes. Hoskins?
Yes.
And Mandelbaum?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next, we have communication. And before we start, I'd like to read our verbiage here. And it says that the Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected officials that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language toward any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If they refuse to do this, it is perceived to be committing a breach of the peace. And if they do not be silenced, their microphone will be muted. And with that, we'll open up for communications.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gerard Mullen, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037. Madam President, tonight I wish to talk about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 in the Southfield City Charter. Chapter 7 is entitled Judicial Division, which describes how the municipal court of the city of Southfield works. Sad to say, the municipal court of the city of Southfield was abolished. Yes, abolished by Public Act 154 of 1968, as mandated by the 1963 Michigan Constitution. And thus, the Southfield Municipal Court was replaced with the 46th District Court on January the 1st, 1969, exactly 5 years after the effective date of the 1963 Constitution, as prescribed by Article 6, Section 26 of the Constitution. Check it out. Check it out. Today, and for the last 52 years, this city, your city, Madam Chair, has been under the judicial rule of a district court, but not according to your outdated, yes, outdated city charter. You heard me right. Chapter 7 in your Southfield City Charter does not, and I repeat, does not accurately reflect Michigan statute law nor Michigan constitutional law. It is about time that you folks here on this city council wake up and do yourselves a felicitous favor and delete Chapter 7 along with the many other outdated items by creating a charter commission under the authority of Section 18 of the Home Rule Act of 1909. If not now, then when? If the city of Detroit can mandate every 20 years a ballot initiative for a proposed charter commission in order to update their charter on a regular basis, then the city of Southfield and the Southfield City Council should be able to do the same. If not you, then who? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Good evening. This is Pamela Gerald, and Southfield residents, I'm going to speak to you. You know that I have been all about community for almost 40 years. You have heard me say over and over again that a community is only strong as its public safety. You have also heard me say that whenever you hear a siren, someone in public safety is risking their lives for you, your family, a neighbor, or a friend. This means our fire department. For about a year and a half, we've dealt with a deadly pandemic. Our firefighters have not only been on the front lines putting out fires, but they've also been providing paramedic services and dealing with mental health issues. In other words, we know that they are essential workers and they are on the front lines. I would like to ask, who is responsible for our firefighters not getting their just due to the point that they have to be in arbitration for a rightful cost of living increase. Now, we've talked about from an economic development standpoint that the cost of lumber has gone up, electrical has gone up, plumbing has gone up, food has gone up. But we have not talked about how those increases offset our firefighters and their inability with whomever in the city to negotiate fairly a proper wage increase for cost of living. Now, whatever department, whomever in that department is responsible for not respecting our frontline workers, and today I'm talking about our fire department, to the point that they have to be in arbitration. Let's take you and your position and your salary and run it through arbitration and see how you feel. I don't like it when we tout our public safety, but yet we don't do right by them to the point that arbitration is absolute. We need to stop this. Give them their cost of living increased and stop with this arbitration. We believe in them. You need to believe in them, City of Southfield. And shame on you, Council, because you got an increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. Good evening, Council, Honorable Body. This is Rosemary Allen, Southfield resident, community activist. I was having some technical difficulties earlier and was not able to get on during the communications portion for Ms. Fletcher. But I wanted to say thank you to the Council for approving her endeavor, and I wanted to congratulate her. As I said to her at one of the planning meetings, I am so grateful that she has decided to bring her business here, a young African-American female, so that's more diversity, a fresh face. I am looking forward to seeing what she's going to do over in that complex there on Greenfield. I will be supporting her. And I wanted to say congratulations to Ms. Fletcher and to thank you to the council, and also happy Juneteenth week of activities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone else?
Caller number 8. Maybe they changed their mind. That's
Hello,
it.
I believe that's me.
Okay, that's him. Yeah, there you go.
Hello.
Thank you. My name is Alex Sikorsky. I'm a resident of Prosper Drive in Southfield, and this is my first time ever participating in any kind of communication or hearing like this. I'm not even sure if I'm addressing the right audience, but I want to raise awareness about an issue that myself and my neighbors have been facing for a couple years and have spent thousands of dollars in an attempt to remediate something that would be better addressed by the city of Southfield, which is dealing with a worsening gypsy moth infestation, which can severely damage the mature oaks that really makes our neighborhood and a lot of areas in Southfield very distinctive and welcoming. I know when I was looking for a home here in Southfield, I was very fortunate to find this wooded lot and these beautiful large oak trees. and I didn't know it at the time, but the gypsy moths obviously don't respect property boundaries, and my neighbors and I can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars a year on having an arborist come out and treat the trees, but I understand that there's a better approach that the city could take, which is to have some type of spray some type of aerial spraying that is meant specifically to combat gypsy moth infestations, and I would appreciate a callback from someone responsible who could speak to me about these issues, perhaps someone from the forestry department. I can be reached at 313-378-5222. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Madam President, that does conclude the communication portion of the council meeting this evening.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe you have Mr. Sikorsky's phone number. Could we have someone from our, I guess our planning, would it be planning or would it be our
I'll forward the number to
Parks and Rec Department?
I'll forward the number to our city administrator, and I'm sure he'll find the right person.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I was hoping with maybe the wildlife committee or something could maybe take that on too, by the way of John McRena or something.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Thank you, Councilman Cruz.
Yep.
Thank you.
Council President?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought at one time the city did do spraying for gypsy moths. Did we stop that program?
I'm not sure. I know it was we spoke about it a while ago, and that's why I was referring to Parks and Rec. I think it was under forestry or something with Parks and Rec, where we had the maybe it was Department of Public Works. I'm not sure, but I think if we let the city administrator find all that out for us and take the suggestion of Councilman Cruz, we can get an answer, response back.
Okay, because I would like an answer, because I thought at one time every summer we sprayed, but I could be getting it confused with another moth. But I thought it was gypsy moths that we used to spray for.
I agree with you. I think it was something, but let's let the city administrator get back to us. And Mr. City Administrator, would you reply to all of us here on council so that we'll have the information?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're under the council portion. So council, I will start with you. Ms. Banks?
I have nothing to add this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
I have a couple, but the most important thing I wanted to bring up the fact that on Friday, June the 11th, the Pulitzer Prize Board gave a special citation to a Miss Daniela Frazier. She's the teenager who captured the torture and death of George Floyd on her cell phone. The Pulitzer Prize is one of the most prestigious awards in American journalism, and they made a special citation for this young lady. And this is outside of that category and of their boundaries of recognizing things, simply because her video, and then someone said this is the most important civil rights document in a generation. So that's kind of, I just want to bring forward this, that the most prestigious organization in American journalism, and who try to get their job done of making sure all stories are published and facts out there, they recognize this young lady. And she literally captured the torture and death of George Floyd. And without that video, we would never have known the truth. So I just want to make sure that, and I'm assuming that the word will get out, but as they announced those awards, this young lady got an award, special citation from the Pulitzer Prize winning board, and it's chaired by the Columbia University of New York. So it's not a little thing that she was actually recognized as a teenager for doing what she did, the courageous thing she did. So that's the big announcement that I wanted to make. But the other thing is, I wanted to, and I think it's in. I brought up a while back, and you guys can let me know whether or not it's in the work. Having another class on Robert's rules. This we did several years ago.
Yes, that is in the works.
Okay, good. But the big thing is the young lady, she was recognized for creating one of the most important civil rights documents in a generation. So, and I had to agree with it. I mean, I am not a historian, so, but I have to definitely agree with that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, I certainly have to agree with Councilman Brockwell about the acknowledgement of the lady that filmed the George Floyd incident. While some might say, well, why was she just sitting there taping it? There really wasn't much you could do. If they were going to sit there and do what they did to Mr. Floyd, who knows what they would have done to her if she tried to intervene, or any of the people around there. So, you know, that's why, and I'm very proud of the fact that our police came up with that idea of the duty to intervene by a fellow officer. And so, you know, and we've got national recognition for that. I think, and rightly so. So I would again just agree with the councilman that that was a very noble and brave thing that she did. The only other thing I also want to mention that a previous caller during public comments said something to the effect about council receiving raises as it relates to the salary that we get. And I just want to make the record clear that we haven't gotten any raises. The council or the committee that has reviewed us on a regular basis has not found it appropriate at the time to give us that, and so we're continuing to work under the same salary that we have always worked under, and I just don't think it's fair to just throw something like that out there when it's not true. So other than that, I wish everyone well. Happy Juneteenth. I hope everyone is going to celebrate and recognize it in their own way come this weekend, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yes, first off, am I the only one that every once in a while gets a gap in the conversation that's going on? Because this happened about 3 or 4 times this evening. In fact, when Councilman Cruz was just talking a minute ago, I thought for a minute I went deaf. And then
we can't hear you, Councilman Frazier.
No, yes.
No, we can't hear you at all, sir.
You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you. We couldn't before.
Oh yeah, well, I've been unmuted, and that's my complaint. You know, I don't know if I got a weak Wi-Fi signal or what, but several times tonight, when things are going on, all of a sudden I was just not getting any sound out of my iPad. But No, I agree. I also agree with Councilman Brightwell about that. What she did was pretty heroic. And in fact, one of the comments that she made that I thought was very interesting, that she said that she thought her cell phone was broken because nothing moved for such a long time, that I'm glad she was there, and I'm glad she did what she did, and whatever award she gets, she deserved. And that's it for tonight for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you. Of course, I echo everything that my colleagues have been saying about the young lady who received the citation from the Pulitzer Committee. And I also hope that everyone gets a chance to enjoy all the Juneteenth events that we have going on this week in the city. But other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes, thank you. I know I've seen it on our city's social media, and I've been posting it quite a bit as well. But our Parks and Rec department is looking for employees, lifeguards, and other people to help with different aspects of Parks and Rec, groundskeeping, people to help with the parks. But in general, the city of Southfield is also looking for seasonal employees. So if you know of a college student home for the summer that's looking for something to do, the city is looking for quite a bit of seasonal help, that they should just go to the city's website under Human Resources, and there's links to apply. Also, I'm assuming that this will come to the city council at some point, but while it makes its rounds through the community, tomorrow, the Parks and Rec department will be having a discussion or a presentation about their plan for Beechwoods. It will be done. You can find the information at the Southfield Parks and Recreation Facebook page. There is a link and a password. Or if you have any questions, you can call Southfield Parks and Rec. But I think that if anybody wants to get a glimpse of what will be happening or what is being proposed at Beechwoods, I think it would be something spectacular to attend. So again, that's tomorrow night. And I can't find any other information about it. I think it's at 6.
6 to 7:30 p.m., Mr. Mandelbaum.
Perfect. But again, you can go to the city's Facebook page or contact our Southfield Parks and Rec Facebook page, or contact the Parks and Rec department for more information on how to view that presentation. Other than that, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention Juneteenth and give a little bit of my understanding of it. On June 19th in 1865, about 2 months after the Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox, Virginia, Gordon Granger, a Union general, arrived in Galveston, Texas, to inform enslaved African Americans of their freedom and that the Civil War had ended. General Granger's announcement put into effect the Emancipation Proclamation, which had been issued more than 2.5 years earlier on January 1st, 1863 by President Abraham Lincoln. The special day received its name by combining June and 19. The day is also sometimes called Juneteenth, Independence Day, Freedom Day, or Emancipation Day. The original celebration became an annual one, and it grew in popularity over the years. Celebrations reached new heights in 1872 when a group of African American ministers and businessmen in Houston purchased 10 acres of land and created Emancipation Park. This space was intended to hold the city's annual Juneteenth celebration. Today, while some celebrations take place among families in backyards where food is an integral element, some cities like Atlanta, Washington, hold larger events like parades and festivals with residents local businesses, and more. In 1980, Texas became the first state to designate Juneteenth as a holiday. Though the recognition is largely symbolic, since then at least 45 states and the District of Columbia have moved to officially recognize the day. However, it has fallen short of becoming a national holiday. Southfield has stayed ahead of the curve by recognizing and acknowledging the significance of Juneteenth. Following the nationwide protests over the police brutality and the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and other Black Americans, there is a renewed interest in the day that celebrates freedom. The celebration continues to resonate in new ways, given the sweeping changes and widespread protests across the United States over the last year and following the guilty verdict in the killing of Mr. George Floyd. Democrats in our Congress unveiled sweeping legislation targeting misconduct and racial discrimination by the police. The bill was most expansive intervention into policing that lawmakers have proposed in recent memory. Juneteenth affords an opportunity to acknowledge the sweeping awareness and changes that have taken place the last couple of years, celebrating emancipation from many laws and legislation that enslaved people of color in social, economic, and cultural terms. Thank you for that. I also like to take this moment to thank all of the teams that participated in the All-American City Award process. Although the city of Southfield did not win this award, we came together as teams, and I want to give special thanks to Renee Hinahusa and the IT team and their team, Lisa Hawkins and Cable 15 and her team, Michael Mannion and Community Relations and his team, administration, Donner, and all of us on the administration and on council for all that we've done. Everyone came together to show how wonderful Southfield is and what we can accomplish when we do things together. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. And it was also mentioned about the award and recognition that our chief of police have received in our police department for duty to intervene when you see something wrong. He has been recognized nationally for this. And it's a great honor that we have such thought-minded person that does not only think of the police department, but he thinks of the people that he's policing as well. So I just want to say thank you to everyone tonight, and enjoy Juneteenth and all the celebrations that the city of Southfield is putting on. And thank you. And with that, we'll go to our mayor's portion.
Good evening, and Ms. Taylor, thank you very much for those remarks. It certainly was a tremendous effort on our part, and we are a winner. Being in the top 20 in this year's competition is an achievement in itself. Also, I want to segue into the fact that our own Kimmy Horn won the Cultural Entertainment Award from the National Civic League. And I wanted to mention to the council that sort of a heads up, the Kimmy Horn Jazz Festival will be resumed on August 13th and 14th. It will be in person. We're seeing really a great improvement as far as COVID, and the numbers are way down, so we will be doing this in person. I've asked the city attorney to bring to you next week the contract for the Kimmy Horn Productions, that is the entity that puts on the Kimmy Horn Jazz Festival. I will tell you that due to the shortness of the time to prepare, the contract is will be absolutely identical to previous years. There'll be no changes, but I've asked that be under consideration for next Monday evening. And finally, I really appreciate your full remarks, Ms. Taylor. And locally, I forgot to mention this or acknowledge, we have a great team that has come together to put on the Southfield Juneteenth week. And in no particular order, it includes the board of directors of the Southfield Historical Society and Darla Van Hoy. It includes the Friends of the Library, Yolanda Haynes. It includes the library staff, Kelly Rambert in particular, and it includes my office, as well as a tremendous amount of work has been put in by the Omega chapter of the Kappa Alpha Kappa sorority. Zena Kiles is the chairperson for their Juneteenth project. So I wanted to acknowledge all of them, and I'll sign off this evening by saying Happy Juneteenth to you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Next, we'll have our administration.
Thank you, Madam President and Honorable Council. I first have an item I am requesting council authorization on, as tonight's meeting is a hybrid meeting. I'm asking that City Council authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute a 3-year software license and service agreement with governmentjobs.com, Inc., doing business as NeoGov, inclusive of the Learn model. Funding for this first year is totaling $18,750. Funding is available in the Capital Improvement Fund account. Annual support will need to be allocated as part of future council budgets. This is the software. If you'll recall, the city is implementing BSNA software for our accounting, and this is a software component that interacts with BSNA for our human resource tracking module. In particular, this component, and council has already approved NeoGov for our employee tracking from application to retirement, but this allows us to track employee training. And if you recall, as part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, training is a large piece of that, and other professional training and development that our staff goes through, weekly, daily within the organization. Police, fire training, professional training, certifications for myself, our planning department, our assessor, our clerk's office, just something that allows us to track the training. I believe Dr. Maria Calhoun is on to answer any additional questions. But I am asking for a resolution to move this item forward.
Okay. All right, I'll go through council and see if you have any questions for Ms. Calhoun or for Fred Zorn. And I'll start with you, Mr. Brightwell.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz?
Questions for me, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Questions?
Thank you. Mr. Hoskins?
No question for me. Thank you.
Mr. Mandelbaum?
No questions. Thank you.
And Councilwoman Banks?
No questions. Thank you.
Council, I would like to entertain a motion.
Councilman Mandelbaum, I'd like to move the approval of authorization to purchase human resource and information software.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of the authorization to purchase human resource information software for the Human Resources Department. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Taylor,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Brightwell,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Mandelbaum,
Yes.
and Frazier.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Madam
further,
President.
yep,
Yes.
any further I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President, Honorable Council. I just have a few other comments. I too want to thank everyone involved with the National Civics League's All-American Cities Award. As has previously been said, 20 cities made it to the finalists. We have so much to be proud of. Every day, I hear just these incredible things happening. The 3 stories we told to tell were our community's response to COVID, our community's response to the protests this past summer, and our duty to intervene program by our police department. What we're doing with My Brother's Keeper, working with youth people, our youth, as well as our police department, as well as the city's housing story and the Northland redevelopment. 3 incredible stories. Michael Mannion, Renee Hinojosa, Cable 15, Lisa, her team did an outstanding job. I want to thank the mayor, council president, Councilman Cruz, Councilman Amandabaum, Police Chief Barron, Police Chief Menifee, Jay Reed, Lieutenant Hewley, our youth and liaison officer. Just so many people work behind the scenes to make this happen, and we really do have a great story to tell. Should be very proud. Again, as previously mentioned, we did win the Cultural Arts Award for the Kimmy Horn concert. I'd also like to thank council for the adoption of the budget. The budget process starts in December of every year. Every department's involved in it. The CIP is adopted before this. In particular, I want to recognize our finance director, Austin Michaels, and Hanan Azu, for their outstanding work. I also need to recognize Jeff Cush and Denise Bailey and the entire department. It takes an awful lot to get this here. I've been fortunate to have been practicing in this arena in local government since 1994. And I will tell you, I believe we've got one of the best finance directors out there. As was indicated earlier, he really breaks this down into clear and concise statements, making it much easier to be understood. I'd also like to just recognize everyone involved with the Northland project. It has taken us a lot to get to this point. We still have a lot of work to do. The next steps, immediate steps, will be the development and a presentation to council regarding the supplemental agreement, and then getting the Economic Development Corporation Michigan Strategic Fund to sign off on the final approval. As was stated, we do have a letter of interest from them, which is the first step to getting on their agenda. So we are moving that project forward. I need to just recognize Alice Sevis and Rochelle Freeman on our team for getting us there. Tonight's council meeting, there was some discussion about the courts. I have indicated for about the past year and a half that court reform was a large issue that was supposed to be addressed by the legislature prior to COVID. I do believe it is something that the Finance Committee should act on, as well as the Legislative Committee. The restructuring of the courts will require some legislative action. Locally, the last community that went through this, just our neighbor to the east, some of the members in their district court opted to go join a district to the north. So it can be challenging at times, and it's always driven by the economics. And I think the Mayor Cyber has done an excellent job in articulating the concerns over what the courts are costing us. I think the other piece on the legislative component, as we talk about judicial reform in this country and addressing some of the inequities in the American culture, a lot of it begins with this drive and how we finance courts. This council has been active in putting in place and working with the state the indigent defense so that people who are low income can at least mount the proper defense. That's part of the solution, but getting courts free from the financial burdens and taking this pressure off us, we're constantly focused on subsidizing the courts. Will help in making some of that criminal reform, which this country desperately needs. It's not all about writing tickets. Stormwater came up. I just want to comment that Stormwater has gone through a lot of recent reform. The question that was asked tonight, have there been any developments in the last 4 or 5 years located to this site? And what I would like to just simply state, and during the meeting, I've sent a note to Brandy and Lee Schultz, our city engineer. I'm going to ask them to have an interaction with council regarding stormwater. But I think it's important that council knows this. Every development that's been in front of you the last 5-6 years, you have substantially improved the quality of stormwater. Some have been able to go as far as the 100-year standard. Some at minimum are meeting a 10-year standard, first flush, better treatment. So, this council has quite a bit to be proud of. I'll remind you that stormwater is primarily under the jurisdiction of the Water Resource Commission in Oakland County. Our engineering team works cooperatively with them, but I think Southfield has done a very good job in improving stormwater throughout the region. And many of you are aware this is becoming a very global issue in how we respond to global warming and the pending climate change. On gypsy moths, I think council hit it. It's be forestry, parks and rec, wildlife, a group of interdepartments coming together. I need to check whether or not we've sprayed in the past. I'm not exactly sure, but we will get back with you on the gypsy moth. Want to just hit, encourage people to take advantage of the Juneteenth events. Congratulations on adopting the Pride resolution. I want to remind people that we are still dealing with the COVID crisis, the Delta variant. Anything we can do to encourage more people to get vaccinated would help out. And finally, I just want to hit on a couple June events. On Saturday, June 19th, Parks and Rec, and this is part of the Juneteenth, and they are doing a movies under the stars. You should contact Parks and Rec for that event, but that's Saturday, June 19th at 7 p.m. It was originally going to be set up like a drive-in theater with a $10 charge. Earlier this afternoon, Terry Fields said, Parks and Rec director informed me that there would not be a $10 charge per car, and that the event would be on the front lawn. Summer concerts, Summer in the City, Fridays, 7 to 9, front lawn. June 25th, the performing artist is Angela Davis. And then on June 30th, 7 to 8:30 p.m., Guy Lewis. The Kids Gazebo concert will be on Wednesday at the Berg Park. Group walking opportunities take place Thursday, June 17th at the Civic Center Park. Meet in front of the Parks and Rec building at 9 a.m. All of the programming information is available on the city's webpage under Parks and Rec. And Madam President, that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have.
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
I'll just add on the gypsy moth. I don't believe we sprayed. We had traps that we hung in oak trees, And if I recall correctly, we had a grant for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our city attorney.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, Mayor, and Council. I have nothing to add and just wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to commend the council. Approximately a year ago, this council did pass a resolution addressing the civil and social unrest that was happening in the country on the eve, or not the eve, but on the outcome of the George Floyd situation. And through that, the last 365 days, the city has been involved in many initiatives, as was discussed in this meeting. The chief's opportunity for the duty to intervene. Council did just pass a resolution for a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. So I just want to commend council for being visionaries and leading the way in mid-sized cities on the challenges that we do have as a community and as a world leaders. So I do appreciate the initiative that the council has taken as we continue to be in the forefront of major cities in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let the viewing audience know that the summer tax bills are going to be going out on July 1st. They'll be mailed out. And so people should anticipate receiving that sometime beginning of July. And the due date for that would be August 31st. Any questions, they can contact the Treasurer's Department at area code 248-796-5200, or they could look up the information on taxes.cityofsouthfield.com. The information will be posted after July 1st. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our city planner?
I have nothing further tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Our city assessor? Our city engineer? Okay. We have nothing to schedule. Is there anything else from anyone on the call right now? All right, hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.